Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Get ready to immerse yourselves in a brand new tale. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from today. Now, settle in as we journey into Home Lost, Courage Found. Alara's world was a tapestry woven from sunlight, laughter, and the gentle murmur of the silver stream. Her village, Eldoria, was a haven nestled deep within the Whispering Woods, a place so secluded that many believed it existed only in legend. Every morning, the scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil and ancient trees, creating a symphony for the senses. Alara, with hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes like the deepest forest pools, spent her days learning the ways of the forest from her grandmother, Lyra. Lyra was the village's elder, a woman whose wisdom ran as deep as the roots of the ancient oaks that guarded Eldoria. She taught Alara to read the whispers of the wind, to understand the language of the birds, and to find solace in the quiet strength of the earth. Life in Eldoria was simple, yet rich. There was no need for grand ambitions or worldly possessions. Their wealth lay in their community, their connection to nature, and the stories passed down through generations. Alara cherished these stories, especially those of the guardian spirits who were said to watch over the Whispering Woods, ensuring its balance and protecting its inhabitants. These tales were often accompanied by Lyra's melodic humming, a tune that spoke of ancient magic and enduring peace. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves began their fiery descent, Alara and Lyra were gathering medicinal herbs near the edge of the known forest. The air was unusually still, a silence that felt heavy and natural. Even the usually boisterous forest birds had quieted their songs. Lyra, her brow furrowed with a wisdom that transcended words, paused, her gaze sweeping across the canopy. "The forest holds its breath, child," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "A change is coming." Alara felt an unfamiliar tremor of unease. Eldoria had always been a sanctuary, untouched by the outside world's turmoil. The thought of change, especially one that made her usually unflappable grandmother apprehensive, was unsettling. They returned to the village as dusk began to paint the sky in hues of purple and orange. The usual evening bustle, the sounds of children playing, and the chatter of neighbors seemed muted. A palpable tension hung in the air, a collective apprehension that mirrored Alara's own. That night, sleep evaded Alara. She lay in her small cot, listening to the unfamiliar silence, punctuated only by the distant, mournful hoot of an owl. The guardian spirits, she wondered, were they watching? Were they protecting? A chill, colder than any autumn breeze, crept into her bones. A premonition of the profound shift that awaited Eldoria, and indeed, her entire world. Little did she know, this was the last night of innocence, the final quiet breath before the storm. The calm of the night shattered with an unholy shriek that ripped through the very fabric of existence. Alara bolted upright, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. It wasn't the howl of a beast, nor the cry of a storm. It was something ancient, malevolent, and utterly alien. A blinding flash of purple light erupted from the heart of the village, followed by a concussive wave that threw Alara from her bed. Dust and debris rained down as the small, sturdy homes of Eldoria groaned and splintered. Through the gaping hole where her window had been, Alara saw a horrifying spectacle. Towering, shadowy figures, cloaked in an unnatural darkness, moved with chilling speed, their forms shifting like smoke. They were tearing through Eldoria, not with brute force, but with an insidious energy that seemed to unravel the very essence of the village. Homes dissolved into dust, ancient trees withered and crumbled, and the vibrant life of the silver stream turned to murky stagnation. Fear, cold and absolute, seized Alara. She scrambled to her feet, her mind screaming for Lyra. Pushing past her terror, she stumbled out of her crumbling home, the ground trembling beneath her bare feet. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and ash, a sickening stench that replaced the familiar forest scents. The screams of her neighbors, once distinct, now merged into a single, terrifying chorus of despair. She saw flashes of the shadowy figures, their outlines indistinct, but their power undeniable. They moved with a purpose, a destructive intent that left no room for mercy. "Lyra!" Alara cried, her voice hoarse, swallowed by the cacophony of destruction. She ran towards her grandmother's cottage, her path illuminated by sporadic bursts of purple energy that tore through the night. The village, once a beacon of warmth and life, was now a tableau of chaos and ruin. Lyra's cottage was already in shambles, its thatched roof caved in, its wooden walls splintered. Desperation lent Alara a surge of strength. She tore at the debris, heedless of the splinters and cuts, calling her grandmother's name. A faint groan, barely audible, guided her. Beneath a collapsed beam, half buried in rubble, Lyra lay, her eyes wide with pain and a profound sorrow. Her arm was twisted at an unnatural angle, and a dark stain spread across her tunic. "Alara, my child," Lyra whispered, her voice weak but steady. "You must go, run." Alara shook her head vehemently, tears streaming down her face. "No, grandmother, I won't leave you." Lyra coughed, a terrible rattling sound. "You must. The guardian. They seek the heart of Eldoria. You are its last hope." She pressed a small, intricately carved wooden bird into Alara's trembling hand. It was an ancient charm, said to hold a fragment of the guardian spirit's essence. "Go, child. Follow the ancient path towards the whispering peaks. Find the sunken sanctuary. Only there can you understand. Only there can you find courage." Her eyes, once so full of life and wisdom, began to glaze over. A final shuddering breath escaped her lips, and the light in them faded. Alara let out a primal scream, a sound ripped from the depths of her soul as the reality of her loss crashed over her. Lyra was gone. Eldoria was gone. Her home, her family, her entire world, obliterated in a single horrific night. But even amidst the crushing grief, Lyra's last words echoed in her mind. "Find courage." The wooden bird wormed in her palm, a fragile ember of hope in the overwhelming darkness. She had to run. She had to survive. For Lyra, for Eldoria, for the hope of a home lost. With Lyra's final words echoing in her ears and the wooden bird clutched tightly in her hand, Alara moved. It wasn't a conscious decision, but an instinct, a primal urge to flee the devastation. The shadowy figures were still active, their destructive energy pulsing through the ruins. She saw glimpses of them, their forms like distortions in the air, leaving trails of decay in their wake. They seemed to be searching for something, methodically dismantling what little remained. Alara, a ghost among the ruins, navigated through the shattered remnants of her life. She avoided the main path, instead weaving through the back alleys and what remained of the forest fringe that bordered the village. Every creak of wood, every rustle of leaves, sent a jolt of terror through her. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and despair, and the silence that followed the initial chaos was even more terrifying, a testament to the utter destruction wrought. Her bare feet, once accustomed to the soft earth of Eldoria, now scraped against sharp debris. Tears blurred her vision, but she pushed them back. Lyra's words, "You must go," were a command, a final gift of purpose. She remembered Lyra's lessons on evasion, on moving silently through the forest, becoming one with its shadows. It was a cruel irony that these lessons, meant for playful exploration, were now her only means of survival. She reached the outskirts of the village, where the ancient path Lyra had spoken of began. It was overgrown, almost swallowed by the encroaching wilderness, a testament to how rarely it had been used by the villagers, who preferred the comfort of their established roots. The path wound upwards towards the distant, mist-shrouded peaks, which were known as the Whispering Peaks. The thought of venturing into the unknown alone was daunting. Alara had always been protected, always surrounded by her community. Now she was utterly solitary, a lone sapling in a scorched field. The weight of her loss settled heavily on her shoulders. Her home was gone. Her grandmother, her last living relative, was gone. The simple, joyful life she had known was irrevocably shattered. A profound sense of emptiness threatened to overwhelm her, to make her simply collapse and give up. But then the wooden bird in her hand seemed to pulse faintly, a tiny warmth against her cold skin. It was Lyra's last gift, a reminder of her strength, her wisdom, and the task she had entrusted to Alara. "Find courage," Lyra had said. It was a quest, a purpose, however terrifying. She would not let Lyra's sacrifice be in vain. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, Alara stepped onto the ancient path, leaving behind the ruins of Eldoria. The forest, once a comforting friend, now felt vast and menacing. Shadows danced between the trees, and the sounds of the night, once familiar, now seemed alien and threatening. Her heart ached with a grief so profound it felt physical, but a flicker of defiance ignited within her. She was not just running, she was seeking understanding, seeking answers, seeking the courage Lyra believed she possessed. The path ahead was dark, unknown, and full of peril, but behind her was only ash and silence. There was no going back, only forward. The ancient path was a treacherous ribbon of earth, barely visible beneath layers of fallen leaves and tangled roots. It wound through dense thickets and ascended steep, rocky inclines. Alara, unaccustomed to such arduous travel, found her muscles aching and her breath coming in ragged gasps. The cold night air bit at her exposed skin, and the hunger pangs in her stomach were a constant, gnawing reminder of her displacement. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every rustle in the undergrowth sent her heart leaping into her throat. She imagined the shadowy figures from Eldoria, always just behind her, their unseen presence a chilling weight on her mind. Lyra's teachings on forest survival, once whimsical lessons, now became her lifeline. She remembered how to identify edible berries and roots, how to find clean water, and how to build a rudimentary shelter from fallen branches and leaves. Her first night alone was a nightmare of shivering cold and haunting memories. Sleep offered no escape, only vivid replays of the destruction of Lyra's fading eyes. She woke with a scream caught in her throat, the wooden bird clutched so tightly her knuckles were white. Days blurred into a monotonous rhythm of walking, foraging, and fighting the gnawing despair. The landscape transformed as she climbed higher. The lush, familiar trees of the lower Whispering Woods gave way to gnarled, ancient pines that clawed at the sky, their branches draped with mournful moss. The air grew thinner, colder, and the mist became a permanent shroud, obscuring the path ahead and behind. Loneliness, a profound and aching emptiness, became her constant companion. She missed the simple presence of her neighbors, the warmth of Lyra's hand, the familiar scents and sounds of Eldoria. There were moments when the urge to simply sit down and give up was almost overwhelming. What was the point? What difference could one young woman make against such a devastating force? But then she would remember Lyra's eyes, full of trust and hope, and the warmth of the wooden bird in her palm. It was a tangible link to her past, a silent promise to her future. It was in these moments of profound despair that Alara began to notice subtle changes. The wooden bird, which had warmed slightly after Lyra's touch, now seemed to pulse with a faint inner light, almost imperceptible but undeniably present. When she held it, the chill in her bones lessened, and a quiet sense of resolve would settle over her. She also began to feel a subtle connection to the forest itself. The trees, though ancient and imposing, no longer felt entirely menacing. She could almost feel their silent watchfulness, a sense of ancient presence that wasn't hostile, merely observant. One afternoon, as she rested beside a small, icy stream, she noticed a faint, shimmering pattern on the surface of the wooden bird. It was a series of intricate symbols, barely visible, that seemed to shift and glow with a life of their own. She had seen similar symbols in Lyra's old books, ancient script that spoke of the guardian spirits and their sacred sites. This was no ordinary charm. It was a key, a map, a guide. The realization brought a fresh wave of determination. Lyra had given her more than just a task. She had given her the tools. The journey was still fraught with danger and hardship, but Alara no longer felt entirely alone. The path to the sunken sanctuary, to understanding, was still long, but now she had a purpose beyond mere survival. She had a guide and a glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she could find the courage her grandmother believed was within her. As Alara delved deeper into the whispering peaks, the environment grew increasingly surreal. The trees, once gnarled, now seemed to twist into impossible shapes, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with mist, carrying strange ethereal echoes that sounded like distant cries or ancient songs. The ground beneath her feet was no longer solid earth, but a treacherous mix of slippery stones and moss-covered roots, often leading to precarious ledges overlooking dizzying drops. One particularly dense section of the path led her into a valley shrouded in perpetual twilight. Here, the very stones seemed to glow with a faint internal luminescence, casting eerie shadows that danced and shifted with her movements. The wooden bird in her hand vibrated with a stronger energy now, its shimmering patterns more pronounced, almost pulling her forward. It seemed to be guiding her, its subtle tug a constant compass in the disorienting landscape. As she pressed on, the faint echoes grew louder, resolving into distinct voices, ancient and resonant, speaking in a language she didn't understand, yet somehow felt familiar. It was the language of the guardian spirits, the very essence of the forest. The air grew colder, and a sense of profound antiquity settled over her. She knew instinctively that she was drawing closer to the sunken sanctuary. The path eventually opened into a vast, natural amphitheater carved into the mountainside. Before her lay a breathtaking sight, a colossal, ancient tree, unlike any she had ever seen, dominated the center of the clearing. Its bark was like polished obsidian, its leaves a deep, shimmering emerald. From its base, a pool of water, impossibly clear and still, reflected the faint starlight above. This was the sunken sanctuary, a place of immense power and forgotten magic. The air around the great tree thrummed with energy, and the ancient voices resonated from its very branches. As Alara approached, the wooden bird in her hand pulsed brightly, emitting a soft, golden light. The patterns on its surface swirled, and the bird itself seemed to hum with recognition. Drawn by an irresistible force, Alara walked towards the pool. As she peered into its depths, the water rippled, and images began to form on its surface. She saw visions of Eldoria, not as it was, but as it had been, a vibrant, bustling community, thriving under the protection of the guardian spirits. Then the images shifted, showing the shadowy figures, the destroyers, as Lyra had called them. She saw their origin not as creatures of flesh and blood, but as manifestations of despair and imbalance, born from the encroaching corruption of the world beyond the whispering woods. They fed on fear and grief, growing stronger with every act of destruction. The pool then showed her Lyra, not just her grandmother, but a lineage of protectors, keepers of the heart of Eldoria, a mystical artifact that anchored the guardian spirits to the region. The heart, she realized with a jolt, was not a physical object, but the very essence of the community's spirit, its hope, its connection to the land. When Eldoria fell, the heart was shattered, leaving the guardian spirits weakened and vulnerable. The destroyers sought to fully extinguish its last embers. The final vision was of herself, standing before the great tree, the wooden bird glowing brightly. It was a fragment of the heart entrusted to Lyra and now to her. It held the potential to rekindle the fragmented spirit, but it required a conduit, a vessel of pure intent. It required courage. The visions faded, leaving Ilara standing before the still pool, the wooden bird now a warm, steady presence in her hand. She understood now. Her journey was not just about survival. It was about restoration. She was not just a refugee. She was a bearer of hope. The weight of this realization was immense, but it was not crushing. Instead, it was empowering. Lyra's trust, the ancient magic of the sanctuary, and the truth revealed in the pool had ignited something within her, a spark of the courage she had been told to find. She was ready to face whatever came next, not as a victim, but as a protector. Armed with the profound knowledge gained at the sunken sanctuary, Ilara felt a renewed sense of purpose, yet also a daunting realization of the task ahead. The destroyers, manifestations of despair and imbalance, were not mere monsters, but a pervasive corruption. To fight them, she needed more than brute strength. She needed a way to restore the heart of Eldoria, to rekindle the spirit of hope that had been shattered. The wooden bird, now a constant source of gentle warmth and a faint glow, guided her away from the sunken sanctuary. It led her not back down the treacherous path she had ascended, but along a different, more ancient route that hugged the higher ridges of the Whispering Peaks. This path was even less defined, often disappearing into sheer rock faces or dense, mist-shrouded thickets, forcing Ilara to rely on her instincts and the subtle pull of the charm. The air grew colder still, and the landscape became starker, dominated by jagged peaks and deep, silent valleys. She encountered strange, ethereal flora that pulsed with faint light, and heard the distant, mournful cries of unseen creatures. Despite the harshness, a strange beauty permeated the high mountains, a raw, untamed majesty that spoke of ancient power. Her journey became a solitary meditation. The physical hardships, the hunger, the cold, the exhaustion, were constant, but her mind was now focused. She meticulously practiced the survival skills Lyra had taught her, finding new ways to adapt to the challenging environment. She learned to read the subtle signs of the weather, to track the scarce mountain game, and to find shelter in unexpected crevices. With each challenge overcome, a small seed of confidence blossomed within her. She was no longer just running. She was actively surviving, proving her resilience. One evening, as a fierce mountain storm began to gather, threatening to engulf her in a blinding blizzard, the wooden bird pulsed more intensely than ever. It pulled her towards a narrow crevice in a sheer rock face, almost invisible amidst the swirling snow. Hesitantly, Ilara squeezed through, finding herself in a small, hidden cave. Inside, the air was surprisingly still and warm. On the cave floor, etched into the smooth rock, was a series of ancient glyphs, identical to the swirling patterns on the wooden bird. As she traced them with her fingers, the glyphs began to glow with a soft blue light. A voice, clear as a mountain spring yet resonant with age, spoke directly into her mind, not in words, but in a cascade of images and feelings. It was a guardian spirit, its presence emanating from the very stone. It revealed to her that the heart of Eldoria was not just a spiritual essence, but also a network of sacred sites, each one holding a fragment of the guardian spirit's power. The sunken sanctuary was one such site, and this hidden cave was another. To fully restore the heart, she needed to awaken these sites, to reestablish the connection between them. The wooden bird, the spirit communicated, was the key, imbued with the purest essence of Eldoria's hope, but it required more than just proximity. It needed a catalyst, a vessel of renewed hope and courage. It needed her to believe, to act, to inspire. The spirit showed her glimpses of other sites, scattered across the Whispering Woods, each presenting a different trial, a different challenge to overcome. The task was monumental, but the voice of the guardian spirit was not one of despair, but of quiet strength. Alara understood that her journey was not just about finding courage, but about becoming courage. She was to be the living embodiment of Eldoria's enduring spirit, the one who would brave the darkness to rekindle the light. The storm raged outside, but within the cave, Alara felt a profound calm. The path ahead was clear, though arduous. She was no longer just seeking. She was embarking on a sacred quest, a pilgrimage to restore what was lost, one sacred site at a time. The weight of her purpose was heavy, but it was also a shield against the creeping despair of the destroyers. Leaving the hidden cave, Alara descended from the lofty, barren peaks into a landscape that slowly began to soften, though it remained wild and untamed. The path, still guided by the gentle pull of the wooden bird, led her towards a deep, verdant ravine known as the Echoing Gorge. This place was said to be home to ancient, forgotten creatures enshrouded in perpetual mist, a natural barrier against those who sought to venture too deep. The guardian spirit's guidance had revealed that the next sacred site lay within this formidable gorge. As she approached, the sounds changed. The wind no longer whistled mournfully but carried strange, low hums and faint, distant roars that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. The trees here were even older, their trunks impossibly wide, their branches forming a dense, interlocking canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else, a primal, wild aroma that spoke of ancient life. Alara moved with newfound caution, her senses heightened. The wooden bird pulsed with a soft green light now, a color that resonated with the lushness of the gorge. She remembered Lyra's teachings about the creatures of the deep forest, their habits, their signs. She learned to distinguish between the harmless rustle of small animals and the heavy tread of something larger, something potentially dangerous. Her journey through the Echoing Gorge was a test of stealth and patience. The path was frequently blocked by fallen giants of trees, forcing her to scramble over or crawl beneath their massive forms. She navigated treacherous ravines, using vines and exposed roots to lower herself down sheer drops. The silence within the gorge was broken only by the drip of water, the occasional call of an unseen bird, and her own ragged breathing. One afternoon, as she carefully traversed a narrow ledge overlooking a deep chasm, a low growl rumbled from the shadows below. A pair of luminous yellow eyes blinked open, followed by the slow uncoiling of a massive, scaled body. It was a gorge serpent, a creature of legend, known for its territorial nature and immense strength. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Alara. This was not a shadow creature. This was a beast of the wild, a physical threat she could not simply outrun. Her first instinct was to flee, but the ledge offered no escape. The serpent's head, larger than her own torso, slowly rose, its forked tongue tasting the air. Then Lyra's voice, clear as day, echoed in her mind. All creatures of the forest have a rhythm, child. Find it, and you will find your way. Alara took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm her racing heart. She remembered Lyra teaching her about the subtle energies of living things, how to sense their intent. The serpent was not inherently malicious, merely protective of its domain. She focused on the wooden bird, letting its gentle energy flow through her. She extended her hand, not in an act of aggression, but of quiet respect. Slowly, she began to hum a low, ancient melody, one Lyra often sang when communing with the forest. The serpent paused, its head cocked, its eyes fixed on Alara. The growl subsided, replaced by a low, rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the gorge. It was not a threat, but a sound of curiosity. After a long, tense moment, the serpent slowly lowered its head, its massive body uncoiling and slithering deeper into the shadows, granting Alara passage. Alara let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She had faced a formidable foe, not with a weapon, but with understanding and respect. Guided by Lyra's wisdom and the subtle power of the heart's fragment, she had found a different kind of courage, one that embraced empathy over aggression. The path ahead, she knew, would demand even more. With the gorge serpent's unexpected concession, Alara continued deeper into the echoing gorge, her steps now more confident, her spirit buoyed by her recent success. The experience had taught her a profound lesson. Courage wasn't just about facing fear head-on, but about understanding, adapting, and finding unexpected solutions. The wooden bird, still emanating a soft green glow, led her through a labyrinth of overgrown paths and cascading waterfalls, their roar echoing through the chasm. The air grew heavy with moisture, and the scent of fertile earth was almost overpowering. The mist that perpetually hung in the gorge began to thin, revealing glimpses of sunlight filtering through the dense canopy. Finally, the path opened into a hidden clearing, bathed in a soft, ethereal light. In the center stood not a tree or a monolith, but a shimmering crystalline pool, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the emerald hues of the surrounding foliage. This was the second sacred site, the Pool of Whispers. As Alara approached, the wooden bird pulsed brightly, its green light intensifying. She knelt by the pool, its water so clear she could see intricate patterns of luminous moss growing on its bottom. As she gently dipped the wooden bird into the water, a ripple of pure energy spread across the surface. The pool began to glow, its light illuminating ancient symbols etched into the surrounding rock face, symbols that mirrored those on the bird. Then, from the depths of the pool, a form began to coalesce. It was a guardian spirit, but unlike the unseen voice in the cave, this one was visible, albeit ethereal. It manifested as a shimmering, translucent figure, composed of water and light, its form resembling a benevolent forest nymph. Its eyes, deep pools of emerald light, held an ancient wisdom and a gentle sorrow. The spirit communicated with Alara, not through words, but through a direct transfer of emotion and memory. It showed her the history of the echoing gorge, how it had once been a place of healing and sanctuary, its waters imbued with restorative properties. It showed her how the destroyer's encroaching corruption had begun to poison its essence, slowly dimming its light and weakening its protective magic. The spirit revealed that each sacred site held a specific aspect of Eldoria's heart. The sunken sanctuary held the memory of Eldoria, the hidden cave held the will of Eldoria, and the Pool of Whispers held the compassion of Eldoria. To fully restore the heart, she needed to connect these aspects, to reawaken them through acts of courage, empathy, and hope. The guardian spirit also showed her a vision of a new threat. The destroyers were growing bolder, their shadowy forms beginning to manifest physically, not just as destructive energy. They were actively seeking the remaining sacred sites, sensing the fragments of the heart and the growing resistance. Alara's quest was becoming more urgent, more perilous. The spirit then imparted a blessing upon Alara, a surge of pure healing energy that flowed from the pool, through the wooden bird, and into her very being. She felt her weariness lessen, her cuts and bruises begin to mend, and a deep, revitalizing warmth spread through her. More importantly, she felt a profound connection to the spirit, a shared sense of purpose. When the vision faded and the spirit receded back into the pool, Alara stood, feeling stronger and more determined than ever. She now understood that her personal journey was intertwined with the fate of Eldoria's heart. She was not just restoring a memory. She was embodying the very qualities needed to fight the encroaching darkness. The weight of her responsibility was immense, but so too was the power of the renewed compassion flowing within her. The wooden bird, now vibrating with an even stronger, multifaceted energy, pointed her towards the next sacred site, guiding her out of the echoing gorge and towards new, unknown challenges. Refreshed and invigorated by the Pool of Whispers, Alara felt a subtle but profound shift within herself. The physical aches of her journey had diminished, replaced by a quiet strength. More importantly, the gnawing lightness had lessened, replaced by a sense of companionship, a connection to the guardian spirits that transcended physical presence. The wooden bird, now a beacon of green and gold light, pulsed with a steady rhythm, guiding her out of the echoing gorge and towards a new, unexplored region of the Whispering Woods. This area was known as the Sunken Marshes, a vast expanse of bog and mist, notorious for its deceptive paths and hidden dangers. The guardian spirit had warned her that this site, the resilience of Eldoria, was particularly challenging to reach, guarded by illusions and a constant sense of disorientation. As she entered the marshes, the ground beneath her feet became soft and treacherous, often giving way to murky water. The air grew heavy with the smell of stagnant water and decaying vegetation. Twisted, ancient cypress trees, their roots gnarled and exposed, rose like silent sentinels from the water, their branches draped with long, wispy moss. A thick, oppressive mist hung perpetually in the air, reducing visibility to mere feet and making every step a gamble. The sounds of the marsh were unsettling, the croaking of unseen frogs, the buzzing of insects, and the strange, gurgling sounds of the bog itself. Alara had to rely heavily on the wooden bird, which now pulsed with a deep, earthy brown light, indicating the resilient nature of the marsh. Its light seemed to cut through the mist, revealing glimpses of solid ground where she could safely step. Without it, she knew she would be lost within moments. The marsh was a master of illusion. Paths that seemed solid would suddenly dissolve into water, while shimmering pools would reveal themselves to be firm earth. Whispers, almost indistinguishable from the rustling of leaves, seemed to call her name, beckoning her off the true path. It was a psychological battle as much as a physical one, testing her resolve and her ability to discern reality from deception. Lyra's lessons on focusing her senses, on trusting her intuition, became invaluable. Alara learned to feel the subtle shifts in the ground beneath her feet, to listen for the true sounds of the marsh, and to ignore the seductive whispers. She understood that the marsh wasn't trying to actively harm her, but to test her, to see if she possessed the unwavering resolve needed to carry the heart of Eldoria. One particularly dense section of the marsh seemed to repeat itself. No matter which way she turned, she found herself back at the same gnarled cypress tree. Despair began to creep in, a cold, insidious feeling that threatened to overwhelm her. Was this a trap? Was she doomed to wander the marsh forever? The mist seemed to thicken, pressing in on her, and the whispers grew louder, mocking her efforts. Just as she felt the last vestiges of her strength draining away, the wooden bird pulsed violently, its brown light flaring. It projected a faint, shimmering outline of a true path, almost invisible to the naked eye. This path, Alara realized, was not about avoiding the marsh's tricks, but about embracing its rhythm, understanding its ebb and flow. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and focused on the bird's guidance. She stepped onto the phantom path, placing her trust entirely in the unseen. Her foot landed on solid ground. She opened her eyes, and the mist seemed to part before her, revealing a clear, albeit narrow, way forward. She had overcome the marsh's illusions not by fighting them, but by trusting her inner guidance and the resilience of the heart's fragment. This act of unwavering faith, this refusal to yield to deception, was her offering to the resilience of Eldoria. She knew now that the path ahead would continue to test her, but she also knew that within her, the heart of Eldoria was steadily growing stronger, piece by courageous piece. Emerging from the deceptive embrace of the sunken marshes, Alara felt a new layer of resilience settle within her. The constant vigilance required to navigate the illusions had sharpened her senses and fortified her spirit. The wooden bird, now glowing with a complex blend of green, gold, and brown light, continued its gentle pull, guiding her towards the next sacred site. This new direction led her away from the low-lying wetlands and towards a region of rolling hills and ancient, crumbling stone structures known as the Forgotten Cairnlands. This area was shrouded in mystery, said to be a burial ground for an ancient civilization and a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The guardian spirit had revealed that this site held the wisdom of Eldoria, a crucial piece for restoring the heart. As she ventured into the Cairnlands, the landscape shifted dramatically. The lushness of the forest gave way to open plains dotted with colossal, weathered stones, some standing upright like silent sentinels, others toppled and partially buried, forming strange, enigmatic patterns. The air here was drier, cooler, and carried the faint, metallic scent of ancient rock. A pervasive silence hung over the land, broken only by the mournful cry of distant ravens and the whisper of the wind through the stones. The wooden bird pulsed with a deep indigo light now, a color associated with wisdom and insight. It led her through fields of these ancient cairns, each one seemingly imbued with a forgotten history. She felt a profound sense of antiquity here, a connection to countless generations who had walked this land before her. She imagined the people who had built these structures, their beliefs, their lives, now reduced to silent stone. The challenge of the Cairnlands was not physical, but intellectual and spiritual. The path was not fraught with monsters or illusions, but with riddles and paradoxes. As Alara approached certain formations of stones, strange symbols would glow faintly on their surfaces, twisting and changing before her eyes. These were not words she could read, but patterns that demanded understanding, a different kind of interpretation. She remembered Lyra's tales of the Ancient Ones, who communicated through symbols and dreams, and whose wisdom was hidden in plain sight. Alara spent days studying the patterns, meditating among the stones, letting her mind wander freely. She tried to connect with the subtle energies of the land, to open herself to the wisdom it held. The wooden bird was her only clue, its shifting pattern sometimes mirroring the glyphs on the stones, offering a fleeting hint. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to discern connections, to see the underlying harmony in the seemingly random arrangements. It was like learning a new language, one spoken by the earth itself. She realized that the wisdom wasn't about finding specific answers, but about understanding the interconnectedness of all things, the cyclical nature of life and death, creation and destruction. One particular large megalith, adorned with the most complex patterns, seemed to hum with a quiet energy. As Alara placed the wooden bird against it, the indigo light flared and the entire structure vibrated. A voice, ancient and serene, filled her mind, not with specific instructions, but with profound insights into the balance of the world, the flow of magic, and the intricate dance between light and shadow. It spoke of the destroyers not as pure evil, but as an extreme imbalance, a necessary correction gone terribly wrong. It spoke of the need for true balance, for the integration of all aspects of existence. Alara felt her mind expand, her perspective broaden. The wisdom wasn't just knowledge, it was understanding. She had unlocked the wisdom of Eldoria by seeking truth, by opening herself to ancient insights, and by finding patterns in chaos. The wooden bird now vibrated with a rich, multifaceted glow, a testament to the growing power of the rekindled heart. She knew that the ultimate confrontation with the destroyers would require not just strength and resilience, but also the profound wisdom she had gained. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she now carried a deeper understanding of the forces at play, and a clearer vision of what needed to be done. Her courage was no longer just about enduring. It was about knowing. Carrying the newly awakened wisdom of Eldoria, Alara felt a profound sense of clarity. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, revealing the true nature of her quest. The wooden bird, now a kaleidoscope of pulsing colors, guided her from the ancient Cairn lands towards the final sacred site, the Shimmering Cascade, a legendary waterfall said to be the source of all magic in the Whispering Woods. This site, the guardian spirit had revealed, held the harmony of Eldoria, the culmination of all the other aspects. As she journeyed, the landscape became increasingly vibrant. The air grew crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and fresh water. The trees, no longer gnarled or ancient, stood tall and majestic, their leaves a brilliant green. Birds sang joyous melodies, and small, playful forest creatures scurried through the undergrowth, their presence a stark contrast to the desolate regions she had traversed. It was as if the land itself was beginning to heal in anticipation of her arrival. The wooden bird pulsed with a pure, radiant white light, a symbol of unity and harmony. Its warmth filled her, alleviating any lingering exhaustion and sharpening her senses. She felt a growing connection to everything around her, a sense of belonging that she hadn't felt since the destruction of Eldoria. This was a place where magic was palpable, where the very air hummed with unseen energy. The path to the Shimmering Cascade was not difficult in terms of physical obstacles, but it was subtly challenging. It required her to move with intention, to be present in every step, to appreciate the delicate balance of the ecosystem around her. She found herself instinctively avoiding crushing a fallen leaf or stepping too heavily on a patch of moss. It was a pilgrimage of mindfulness, a journey of conscious connection. Finally, she arrived at the Shimmering Cascade. It was a breathtaking sight. A massive waterfall plunged from a towering cliff, its waters not just clear, but infused with an iridescent glow, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. As the water crashed into the pool below, it sent up a fine mist that sparkled with countless motes of light, creating an ethereal aura around the entire area. The air thrummed with pure, unadulterated magic. At the base of the waterfall, half hidden by the spray, stood a natural altar of smooth white stone. As Alara approached, the wooden bird flared, its white light enveloping her. She placed the bird on the altar, and the moment it touched the stone, an incredible surge energy erupted. The Shimmering Cascade intensified, its colors swirling faster, its light growing brighter. From the heart of the waterfall, a figure began to emerge, not of water or light, but of pure crystalline energy. It was the Prime Guardian Spirit, the original protector of Eldoria, its form majestic and awe-inspiring. Its presence was overwhelming yet benevolent, radiating immense power and profound peace. The Prime Guardian Spirit communicated with Alara, its voice a symphony of all the sounds of the forest, resonating deep within her soul. It spoke of the true nature of the heart of Eldoria. It was not just a collection of sacred sites, but the collective spirit of the people, their hopes, their dreams, their connection to the land and to each other. The destroyers had shattered this connection, but Alara, through her courage, compassion, resilience, and wisdom, had begun to weave it back together. The wooden bird, the spirit revealed, was not just a fragment, but the seed of the heart now fully awakened. It was ready to be implanted, to fully restore the harmony of Eldoria. But the task was not yet complete. The fully awakened heart needed to be brought to the source of the corruption, to confront the destroyers at their origin and reestablish balance. The spirit then imparted a final blessing, a powerful surge of pure magical energy that flowed through Alara, connecting her to the heart of the Whispering Woods, making her a true conduit for the heart of Eldoria. She felt an ancient power awaken within her, a profound sense of purpose that transcended her individual self. She was no longer just Alara. She was the hope of Eldoria, the embodiment of its enduring spirit. The path ahead, she knew, would lead her to the ultimate confrontation, but she was ready. She carried the fully restored heart within her, and with it, the unwavering courage of her people. Empowered by the Prime Guardian Spirit and carrying the fully awakened heart of Eldoria within her, Alara felt a profound transformation. The wooden bird, now resonating with a brilliant, multifaceted light, had become one with her, a living extension of her purpose. She was no longer merely guided by it. She was the guide. The spirit had revealed the destroyer's true origin, a nexus of growing despair located deep within the Shadowfen, a cursed wasteland far beyond the Whispering Woods, where the world's encroaching corruption festered. To truly restore balance, she had to confront them there. This was the ultimate test, the final act of courage. Leaving the shimmering cascade, Alara journeyed with a different kind of resolve. Her steps were firm, her gaze steady. She was no longer driven by fear or grief, but by a quiet, unwavering determination. The path out of the Whispering Woods was long and arduous, leading her through regions she had never known existed. The vibrant life of the woods gradually gave way to harsher, more desolate landscapes. Forests thinned, giving way to rocky plains, then barren hillsides where only sparse, resilient vegetation clung to life. The air grew heavy, losing the crisp freshness of the woods, replaced by a stale, metallic tang. The transition into the Shadowfen was stark and abrupt. One moment, she was on a dusty, rocky trail. The next, she stepped onto ground that was black and cracked, emitting a faint, sickly glow. The sky above was perpetually overcast, a bruised purple-gray, and the air was thick with a cloying, oppressive silence. Nothing grew here, save for twisted, skeletal husks of what might once have been trees, their branches like grasping claws against the desolate sky. The Shadowfen was a place of utter despair. The ground itself seemed to absorb all light and hope. Strange crystalline formations, sharp and dark, jutted from the earth like shattered teeth. The very air seemed to hum with a low, malevolent vibration, a constant reminder of the destroyer's pervasive influence. Alara felt the weight of the world's suffering pressing down on her, an emotional burden that was almost physical. The destroyers, sensing her approach, began to manifest more frequently. They were no longer just shadowy figures. They took on more defined, grotesque forms, coalescing from the corrupted air itself. Some resembled elongated, skeletal beasts, others twisted, humanoid shapes with glowing, malevolent eyes. They moved with a chilling silence, their presence radiating pure despair, attempting to break her spirit before she even reached their nexus. Alara, however, was prepared. The awakened heart within her pulsed with a warm, protective energy, acting as a shield against their insidious influence. She remembered the wisdom of the Kirin lands, understanding balance, not just fighting. She did not engage them in direct combat, for they were manifestations of despair, not physical beings in the traditional sense. Instead, she moved with intention, her focus unwavering, her steps guided by the growing intensity of the heart's light. She found that by radiating hope and resolve, she could make their forms waver, their oppressive aura recede slightly. It was a subtle battle, a war of wills and spirits. Each step through the Shadowfen was a testament to her courage, a silent defiance against the despair that sought to consume her. She was not just walking. She was radiating light into the darkest corners of the world. She knew her destination was nearer, a place of ultimate darkness where the destroyers drew their power. She was ready to face the heart of the corruption, not with a weapon, but with the unwavering light of Eldoria's heart, hoping to ignite a flicker of balance in the overwhelming darkness. Deeper into the Shadowfen, the oppressive atmosphere intensified. The sickly glow from the ground grew brighter, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. The air became heavy, almost suffocating, thick with the scent of decay and concentrated despair. Alara's every breath was a struggle, yet the heart of Eldoria within her pulsed with an unwavering, radiant light, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. She could feel the nexus of the destroyers drawing closer, a magnetic pull of pure negativity. The spectral forms of the destroyers were now constant companions, swirling around her, their silent screams echoing in her mind, attempting to plant seeds of doubt and fear. They showed her visions of Eldoria's destruction again, vivid and agonizing, trying to break her resolve. They showed her Lyra's final moments, twisting the memory into a weapon of guilt and helplessness. But Alara stood firm. She had faced these memories countless times on her journey, and each time she had found a new layer of strength. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the light of the heart fill her, banishing the illusions. She remembered Lyra's unwavering trust, the wisdom of the Cairn lands, the compassion from the Pool of Whispers, and the resilience from the sunken marshes. These were her shields, her weapons against the insidious attacks. She pressed on, her path illuminated by the heart's glow, until she reached the very heart of the Shadowfen. Before her lay a massive, pulsating chasm, a gaping maw in the earth that seemed to drink all light and sound. From its depths emanated a chilling hum, a vibration that resonated with pure, unadulterated despair. This was the nexus of shadows, the source of the Destroyer's power, a wound in the very fabric of the world. Around the chasm, the shadowy forms coalesced into a terrifying singular entity, the Apex Destroyer. It was a colossal, amorphous mass of pure darkness, its form shifting and swirling, constantly morphing into grotesque shapes of fear and sorrow. Its presence was overwhelming, radiating an aura of absolute hopelessness that threatened to extinguish every spark of life within Alara. This was not a physical battle she could win with a sword, nor a magical duel she could win with a spell. This was a confrontation of essences, of light against shadow, hope against despair. The Apex Destroyer turned its terrifying, formless gaze upon her, and a voice cold and ancient filled her mind, not with words, but with the crushing weight of every loss, every failure, every moment of weakness Alara had ever experienced. "You are but a flicker," the voice boomed, "a fleeting spark against an eternal night. Your home is ash. Your people are dust. What hope do you bring against the truth of suffering?" Alara felt a momentary tremor, a fleeting doubt. The despair was so profound, so absolute. But then the heart within her flared, burning brighter than ever before. She looked at the Apex Destroyer, not with fear, but with a fierce, unwavering resolve. "My home is not just ash," she projected, her voice resonating with the strength of the guardian spirits. "It is the memory of warmth. My people are not just dust. They are the legacy of courage, and I am not just a flicker. I am the rekindled heart of Eldoria, and I bring the truth of enduring hope." With these words, Alara reached out, her hands glowing with the brilliant, multifaceted light of the heart. She was ready to bridge the chasm of despair, to confront the very essence of the Destroyer's power with the unwavering light of hope and harmony. The final battle was not one of destruction, but of reestablishing balance, of shining light into the deepest shadow. As Alara extended her hands, the brilliant, multifaceted light of the heart of Eldoria surged forth, not as an aggressive attack, but as a wave of pure, undeniable hope. It crashed against the amorphous, despair-laden form of the Apex Destroyer. The colossal entity recoiled, its shadowy mass rippling and distorting as if struck by an invisible force. The air filled with a chorus of tormented shrieks, not of pain, but of profound discomfort, as the light of the heart began to unravel the very essence of the Destroyers. The Apex Destroyer roared, a sound that was a symphony of all fears, and lashed out with tendrils of pure darkness, attempting to extinguish Alara's light. But the heart within her was too strong. It pulsed with a collective memory, will, compassion, resilience, wisdom, and harmony of Eldoria, creating an impenetrable shield of radiant energy. Alara stood her ground, her gaze fixed on the churning darkness, her entire being focused on radiating the light of hope. This was not a fight to destroy the Destroyers, for they were manifestations of imbalance, and true balance required their eventual integration, not annihilation. This was a battle to restore equilibrium, to remind them of the light that existed, to allow them to remember their own potential for something other than despair. She began to speak, her voice resonating with the power of the guardian spirits, a melodic chant that echoed through the desolate Shadowfen. She spoke of Eldoria's beauty, its people's laughter, Lyra's wisdom, the strength of community. She spoke of the whispering woods, the ancient trees, the singing silver stream. She wove a tapestry of hope and life, projecting these vivid images and feelings directly into the Apex Destroyer's consciousness. As her words flowed, the light from the heart intensified, penetrating deeper into the Apex Destroyer's core. The chasm itself seemed to react, its sickly glow flickering, and the low, despairing hum began to waver. Glimpses of something else, something ancient and almost forgotten, began to appear within the churning darkness of the Apex Destroyer, faint, shimmering colors, echoes of life. The entity thrashed violently, fighting against the intrusive light, against the memories of balance and hope Alara was implanting. It unleashed its full power, attempting to crush her with overwhelming despair, to make her succumb to the very darkness it embodied. But Alara held fast. She remembered Lyra's last words, the wooden bird in her hand, the long journey, the sacred sites, the blessings of the guardian spirits. All of it had led to this moment. She was the vessel, the conduit, and she would not break. With a final, immense surge of will, Alara poured every ounce of her being, every spark of the heart's light, into the Apex Destroyer. The chasm below roared, then pulsed with a blinding flash of pure white light that momentarily eclipsed the perpetual gloom of the Shadowfen. When the light receded, the Apex Destroyer was no more. Its vast, shadowy form had dissipated, not into nothingness, but into countless shimmering motes of dark energy that began to slowly drift, no longer malevolent, but simply lost. The chasm, while still a wound in the earth, no longer pulsed with despair. A faint, ethereal glow emanated from its depths, a sign that the balance was beginning to return. Alara stood, breathless but triumphant, the heart of Eldoria still radiating within her. She had faced the deepest despair and had not just survived, but had begun to heal. The Shadowfen, though still scarred, notched a subtle shift, a faint tremor of renewed possibility. The world, she knew, would not instantly transform, but a crucial step had been taken. The courage found was not just her own, but the courage to reawaken hope in a world shrouded in despair. After the monumental confrontation at the Nexus of Shadows, Alara stood, exhausted but exhilarated, within the heart of the Shadowfen. The oppressive darkness had not vanished entirely, but it had receded, replaced by a strange, ethereal twilight. The air, while still heavy, no longer carried the suffocating weight of despair. The chasm, once a gaping maw of negativity, now pulsed with a faint, shimmering light, a wound beginning to heal. The countless motes of dark energy, remnants of the Apex Destroyer, drifted aimlessly, no longer predatory, but simply seeking direction. Alara knew her task was not simply to defeat the Destroyers, but to restore balance. These lost fragments, once manifestations of fear, now needed guidance, a path back to equilibrium. With the heart of Eldoria still resonating powerfully within her, Alara reached out, not with magic, but with empathy. She focused on the core message of the heart: compassion, wisdom, resilience, harmony. Slowly, gently, she began to draw the shimmering motes of energy towards her. As they came close, she enveloped them in the warmth of the heart's light. She didn't absorb them, but rather infused them with a spark of hope, a gentle reminder of their potential for balance. One by one, the motes of shadow energy began to coalesce, reforming not into grotesque figures, but into small, ethereal wisps of light and shadow, dancing in the air around her. They were no longer destroyers, but something new, something rebalanced. Perhaps even nascent guardian spirits of a different kind, born from the integration of despair and hope. This was the true healing. The Shadowfen itself began to respond. Faint cracks appeared in the barren earth, and from them, tiny, resilient shoots of iridescent grass began to emerge, pushing through the dark soil. The skeletal husks of trees, once symbols of death, now seemed to shimmer with a faint internal light, as if life was slowly returning to them. The perpetual twilight began to soften, allowing a faint, bruised sunlight to filter through the perpetual clouds. The transformation was slow, subtle, but undeniable. Alara spent days in the Shadowfen, a silent sentinel, guiding the lost fragments, watching as life slowly, painstakingly, began to reclaim the cursed land. She felt the profound interconnectedness of all things, the delicate dance between creation and destruction, light and shadow. She understood that even despair had its place, but it must never be allowed to overwhelm hope. As the Shadowfen slowly began its long process of healing, Alara knew her work here was done. The Prime Guardian Spirit, its presence now a gentle whisper in her mind, confirmed it. The balance had been shifted, the scales tipped back towards harmony. But her journey was not complete. Eldoria was still in ruins, its people scattered or lost. She had found courage, and she had rekindled the heart. But now she needed to bring that courage and that hope back to her people. The path back to the Whispering Woods would be different. It would not be a path of fear and despair, but a path of purpose, of leading the way towards rebuilding. She carried not just the heart, but the knowledge that even from the ashes of destruction, new life, new hope could always emerge. The sun, a faint but distinct orb in the bruised sky, began its slow descent, painting the healing Shadowfen in hues of purple and gold. Alara, a lone figure amidst the emerging life, turned her gaze towards the distant horizon, towards the home she had lost and the future she would help to build. After the monumental confrontation at the Nexus of Shadows, Alara stood, exhausted but exhilarated, within the heart of the Shadowfen. The oppressive darkness had not vanished entirely, but it had receded, replaced by a strange, ethereal twilight. The air, while still heavy, no longer carried the suffocating weight of despair. The chasm, once a gaping maw of negativity, now pulsed with a faint, shimmering light, a wound beginning to heal. The countless motes of dark energy, remnants of the apex destroyer, drifted aimlessly, no longer predatory, but simply seeking direction. Alara knew her task was not simply to defeat the destroyers, but to restore balance. These lost fragments, once manifestations of fear, now needed guidance, a path back to equilibrium. With the heart of Eldoria still resonating powerfully within her, Alara reached out, not with magic, but with empathy. She focused on the core message of the heart: compassion, wisdom, resilience, harmony. Slowly, gently, she began to draw the shimmering motes of energy towards her. As they came close, she enveloped them in the warmth of the heart's light. She didn't absorb them, but rather infused them with a spark of hope, a gentle reminder of their potential for balance. One by one, the motes of shadow energy began to coalesce, reforming not into grotesque figures, but into small, ethereal wisps of light and shadow, dancing in the air around her. They were no longer destroyers, but something new, something rebalanced. Perhaps even nascent guardian spirits of a different kind, born from the integration of despair and hope. This was the true healing. The Shadowfen itself began to respond. Faint cracks appeared in the barren earth, and from them, tiny, resilient shoots of iridescent grass began to emerge, pushing through the dark soil. The skeletal husks of trees, once symbols of death, now seemed to shimmer with a faint internal light, as if life was slowly returning to them. The perpetual twilight began to soften, allowing a faint, bruised sunlight to filter through the perpetual clouds. The transformation was slow, subtle, but undeniable. Alara spent days in the Shadowfen, a silent sentinel, guiding the lost fragments, watching as life slowly, painstakingly began to reclaim the cursed land. She felt the profound interconnectedness of all things, the delicate dance between creation and destruction, light and shadow. She understood that even despair had its place, but it must never be allowed to overwhelm hope. As the Shadowfen slowly began its long process of healing, Alara knew her work here was done. The Prime Guardian Spirit, its presence now a gentle whisper in her mind, confirmed it. The balance had been shifted, the scales tipped back towards harmony. But her journey was not complete. Eldoria was still in ruins, its people scattered or lost. She had found courage, and she had rekindled the heart. But now she needed to bring that courage and that hope back to her people. The path back to the Whispering Woods would be different. It would not be a path of fear and despair, but a path of purpose, of leading the way towards rebuilding. She carried not just the heart, but the knowledge that even from the ashes of destruction, new life, new hope could always emerge. The sun, a faint but distinct orb in the bruised sky, began its slow descent, painting the healing Shadowfen in hues of purple and gold. Alara, a lone figure amidst the emerging life, turned her gaze towards the distant horizon, towards the home she had lost, and the future she would help to build. The journey back from the Shadowfen was a pilgrimage of hope. As Alara retraced her steps, she witnessed the subtle changes she had initiated. The barren plains bordering the cursed land showed hints of green, and the air felt lighter, less oppressive. The further she traveled from the nexus of shadows, the more vibrant the world became, as if the healing energy she had unleashed was spreading outwards, touching everything in its path. Her heart, once heavy with grief, now beat with a quiet resolve. She carried the fully awakened heart of Eldoria within her, not as a burden, but as a source of boundless energy and wisdom. She felt connected to the guardian spirits, their collective presence a comforting hum in her mind. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a beacon, a leader. As she re-entered the familiar, albeit still scarred, Whispering Woods, a wave of bittersweet emotions washed over her. The trees here, though recovering, still bore the marks of the destroyer's passage. Some were withered, others stood as hollow husks, but everywhere, new shoots were emerging, tenacious and full of life. It was a testament to the forest's own resilience, mirroring her own journey. Her ultimate destination was the site of Eldoria. She needed to return to the place of her greatest loss, not to dwell in sorrow, but to offer the heart's restorative power. The guardian spirits had shown her that while the physical village was gone, its spiritual essence, its connection to the land, could be rekindled. The true home was not just buildings, but the spirit of its people. As she approached the ruins, the sight was still heartbreaking. Twisted metal, shattered wood, and crumbling stone were all that remained of the vibrant village she had known. But amidst the desolation, something had changed. The air was clearer, and a faint ethereal glow emanated from the very earth where the heart of Eldoria had once been strongest. It was a faint echo of the magic she had just unleashed in the Shadowfen. Alara walked through the ruins, her heart aching for what was lost, but her spirit soaring with what could be rebuilt. She knelt at the exact spot where Lyra's cottage had stood, the place where she had received the wooden bird. Here, the ground seemed to pulse with a gentle warmth, a faint echo of the heart's original presence. With a deep breath, Alara placed her hands on the earth, closing her eyes. She focused the entirety of the heart of Eldoria, the culmination of all the sacred sites and her own journey, into the ground. A brilliant, multifaceted light erupted from her hands, flowing into the earth, spreading outwards like ripples in a pond. The light penetrated deep into the soil, awakening dormant energies, rekindling the spiritual connection that had been severed. As the light permeated the ruins, a remarkable transformation began. The withered trees around the village perimeter began to unfurl new, vibrant leaves. Small, hardy wildflowers pushed through the cracked earth, their petals glowing with soft, internal light. The silver stream, once stagnant and murky, began to flow with renewed clarity, its waters sparkling. The physical structures did not miraculously rebuild, but the land itself came alive, pulsating with a gentle, healing energy. A profound sense of peace settled over the ruins, a feeling of hope reborn. Alara felt the presence of the guardian spirits, not just within her, but all around her, their quiet blessing filling the air. This was the first step. The physical rebuilding would come later, but the spiritual foundation, the heart of Eldoria, was now fully restored to its rightful place. Alara stood, tears in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound gratitude and renewed purpose. She had brought the light back. Now she had to bring her people back, to show them that even from the ashes, a new home, a new future could be forged. With the heart of Eldoria rekindled at its spiritual core, Alara's next task was to find the scattered survivors of her village. The guardian spirits, now stronger and more active, began to send out subtle signals, faint echoes of hope that could reach those attuned to their presence. Alara, acting as a conduit, amplified these signals, radiating a silent call across the whispering woods. Her journey to find her people was less about physical navigation and more about listening, sensing, and trusting the newly restored connection. She wandered through the edges of the woods, venturing into small clearings and ancient groves, places where villagers might have sought refuge. She left markers, symbols of Eldoria's renewed hope, carved into ancient trees or placed on prominent stones, hoping they would be recognized. Days turned into weeks. She encountered small groups of forest creatures, once timid, now seeming to observe her with a knowing gaze, as if they too sensed the change within her and the land. The forest itself seemed to conspire with her, guiding her towards hidden paths and whispering directions on the wind. One crisp morning, as she rested by a small, secluded spring, she heard it, a faint, hesitant melody, a lullaby Lyra used to sing to the children of Eldoria. Her heart leaped. She followed the sound, her steps quickening, until she emerged into a small, hidden glade. There, huddled around a small fire, were a handful of Eldoria's survivors. Old Man Tiber, the village storyteller, his face etched with sorrow, but his eyes still holding a spark of their old warmth. Young Anya, who used to play hide-and-seek among the willow trees, now clutching a tattered blanket. And several others, their faces gaunt, their clothing ragged, but unmistakably her people. As Alara stepped into the clearing, silence fell. Their eyes, wide with surprise and a flicker of fear, turned towards her. They recognized her, but the change in her was profound. She radiated a quiet strength, a serene confidence they hadn't known she possessed. Alara? Old Man Tiber whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. Is it truly you, child? We thought you were lost to us. Alara smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. It is I, Tiber, and I am not lost. None of us are. Eldoria is not lost. She explained, her voice calm and clear, recounting her journey, the Shadowfen, the guardian spirits, and the rekindling of the heart. She spoke not just of magic, but of the strength of their own spirit, their shared history, their enduring hope. As she spoke, the light of the heart of Eldoria pulsed gently from within her, enveloping them in its warm, comforting glow. The despair that had clung to them, the fear that had frozen their hearts, began to melt away, replaced by a cautious, then overwhelming sense of relief and renewed possibility. Tears streamed down their faces, not of sorrow, but of profound gratitude and hope. They had believed all was lost, that their home was utterly destroyed, their people scattered forever. But Alara, the quiet girl who had once learned from Lyra, had returned as their beacon. We found courage, Alara said, her gaze sweeping over each of them, and now, together, we will find our home. Not the old one, but a new one, built on the foundations of our enduring spirit. The survivors, their faces alight with a newfound hope, rose to their feet. The warmth of the heart had touched them, rekindling their own inner strength. The first step towards rebuilding Eldoria, not just physically but spiritually, had begun. They were no longer scattered refugees. They were a community reunited by courage and led by hope. The reunion of the Eldorian survivors was a moment of profound emotional catharsis. Tears flowed freely, tears of grief for what was lost, but also tears of immense relief and hope for what could be. Alara, no longer just a girl, but a leader imbued with the heart of Eldoria, guided them back towards the ruins of their village. The journey was slow, as many were weak and weary, but the renewed spirit within them propelled them forward. As they approached the site of Eldoria, the survivors gasped. The physical structures were still in ruins, but the land itself was alive. Wildflowers bloomed with ethereal light, the silver stream flowed clear and sparkling, and the trees, though scarred, vibrated with a gentle, healing energy. It was a place touched by magic, a testament to Alara's quest. "This is our foundation," Alara announced, her voice strong and clear, resonating with the power of the heart. "Not the stones and wood, but the life that returns, the spirit that endures. We will build a new home, a new Eldoria, here." The task of rebuilding was immense, daunting, but the despair that had once crippled them was gone. Inspired by Alara's courage and the palpable presence of the rekindled heart, the survivors began to work. Old Man Tiber, though frail, organized the younger ones, sharing stories of past village builds, reminding them of their inherent skills. Anya, once timid, now helped gather materials, her small hands surprisingly strong. The guardian spirits, sensing the collective hope, began to manifest their presence more directly, sending subtle guidance. They would illuminate patches of fertile earth, reveal hidden springs, or guide the villagers to sturdy, fallen timber that could be repurposed. The forest itself seemed to aid them, providing what they needed, as if welcoming its people back. Alara was at the heart of it all. She did not direct every action, but her presence was a constant source of inspiration. She shared the wisdom she had gained from the Cairnlands, helping them to work in harmony with the land, to understand its rhythms. She brought the compassion from the Pool of Whispers, ensuring that no one was left behind, that every voice was heard. She embodied the resilience from the sunken marshes, facing every setback with unwavering determination. The rebuilding was a communal effort, a testament to their enduring spirit. They started with basic shelters, then moved on to more permanent structures, using materials salvaged from the old village and new resources provided by the forest. Laughter, long absent, began to echo through the ruins, mingling with the sounds of hammers and saws. Children, once silent and withdrawn, began to play, their innocence slowly returning amidst the growing signs of life. New Eldoria was not a replica of the old. It was different, perhaps simpler, more integrated with the natural world, reflecting the lessons learned from their devastating loss and Alara's journey. It was a home born from adversity, forged in courage, and built on the unshakable foundation of community. As the first new homes took shape, a profound sense of peace settled over the valley. The scars of the past remained, but they were now overshadowed by the vibrant promise of the future. Alara watched her people, their faces alight with hope, and knew that her journey had truly come full circle. Home was not just a place. It was a feeling, a community, a spirit that could never truly be destroyed, only rekindled. And in finding it, they had all found courage, not just for survival, but for thriving. Years passed since the rebuilding of New Eldoria began, and the village flourished, a testament to enduring hope and the courage found in adversity. It was not the same Eldoria of old. It was something greater, more resilient, more deeply connected to the Whispering Woods and the guardian spirits. The homes were built with sustainable materials, designed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment. The silver stream, now crystal clear and teeming with life, once again provided sustenance and beauty. The surrounding forests, fully healed, hummed with a vibrant energy, its ancient trees standing as benevolent guardians. Alara, now known as the Heart Keeper, was not a ruler, but a wise and respected leader. She ensured that the lessons learned from the Destroyer's attack were never forgotten. The people of New Eldoria lived in harmony with nature, understanding the delicate balance of the world. They practiced mindfulness, compassion, and resilience, the very qualities Alara had embodied on her quest. The children of New Eldoria grew up hearing the stories of the Shadowfen, of the sacred sites, and of Alara's journey. They learned not just of the danger of despair, but of the immense power of courage and hope. Old Man Tiber, his voice still strong, continued to weave tales of their history, ensuring that the legacy of Lyra and the old Eldoria lived on. The wooden bird, once a mere charm, had become a sacred artifact displayed in the heart of the village. It pulsed with a soft, steady light, a constant reminder of the heart of Eldoria, and the profound connection to the guardian spirits. It was a symbol of their renewed covenant with the land. Alara, though still young, carried the wisdom of ages in her eyes. She often walked alone through the revitalized Whispering Woods, feeling the pulse of the heart within her, a part of the forest itself. She knew that the destroyers were not truly gone, but merely rebalanced. The forces of despair and imbalance would always exist in the world, a constant reminder of the need for vigilance and hope. But New Eldoria was ready. Its people were strong, united, and deeply rooted in their courage. One day, a lone traveler, weary and lost, stumbled upon New Eldoria. He had heard whispers of a hidden village, a place untouched by the world's encroaching gloom. He was initially wary, but the warmth and serenity of New Eldoria and the genuine kindness of its people quickly put him at ease. He saw the light in their eyes, the quiet strength in their bearing, and knew this was a place unlike any other. Alara welcomed him, sharing a meal and the story of their village. She spoke not of her own heroism, but of the collective courage of her people, of the enduring spirit of Eldoria. The traveler listened, his own heart, long burdened by the world's despair, beginning to stir with a faint, unfamiliar warmth. He understood that New Eldoria was more than just a village. It was a living embodiment of hope, a sanctuary in a world that desperately needed it. Alara had not just rebuilt a home. She had created a beacon, a testament that even when home is lost, courage can always be found, and with it, a new, stronger home can emerge. As the seasons turned, New Eldoria continued to thrive, a vibrant testament to resilience and the unwavering power of hope. The village became a whispered legend in the wider world, a beacon for those who sought refuge from the encroaching shadows. Alara, the Heart Keeper, watched her people grow, their laughter echoing through the valley, a constant melody of life. She had fulfilled Lyra's final wish, not just by surviving, but by becoming the very embodiment of courage, compassion, and wisdom that Eldoria needed. The heart of Eldoria, resonating within her and throughout the village, ensured a deep, abiding connection to the land and the guardian spirits. The spirits, now fully restored, played an active role in the village's life. Their presence felt in the rustling leaves, the clear waters, and the protective aura that enveloped New Eldoria. They were no longer distant protectors, but integral members of the community, their ancient wisdom guiding the villagers in their daily lives. Alara knew that the world outside still faced challenges, that the forces of despair would always seek to test the balance. But New Eldoria was prepared. Its people were educated not just in survival, but in understanding the delicate interplay of light and shadow. They had learned that true strength lay not in eliminating darkness, but in cultivating and radiating light. The once lost traveler, having found solace and purpose in New Eldoria, decided to stay. He became a bridge to the outside world, sharing the message of hope and resilience, inviting others who sought peace and balance to find their way to the hidden village. New Eldoria began to welcome new residents, not just those from the old village, but people from all walks of life, drawn by the profound sense of community and the promise of a harmonious existence. Alara often revisited the sunken sanctuary, the pool of whispers, the Kirin lands, and the shimmering cascade. Each visit was a reminder of her journey, of the lessons learned, and of the profound transformation she had undergone. She carried the memory of Lyra, her mentor, her grandmother, not with grief, but with profound gratitude for the wisdom and trust that had set her on this path. The wooden bird, now a symbol of her enduring connection to the heart, remained a steady, glowing presence, a reminder that even the smallest seed of hope could blossom into a mighty forest of courage. Alara's story became one of the most cherished tales in New Eldoria, passed down through generations. It was a story not just of a home lost, but of a courage found within, a courage that allowed an entire community to not only survive but to thrive, building a new home, a new future, where hope was the strongest foundation. The Whispering Woods, once a sanctuary, now sheltered a shining beacon of enduring spirit. Alara, the girl who had lost everything, had found her true purpose, her true home, not in a place, but in the unwavering heart of her people, forever entwined with the courage that had led her through the deepest shadows into the brightest light. Her journey, the journey of a home lost and courage found, truly became the eternal song of New Eldoria, a symphony of resilience and hope.